being here to accompany us today. Dr. King's life was bound up in and given to love and loving in the midst of hatred. In this, he molded his life to the teaching and contours of the teaching of Jesus. You have heard that it was said, "You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy." But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you will be called children of your God in heaven. Let us pray. Holy One, be with your servants now and your servant, that the words that are heard and spoken would be found well-pleasing in your sight, you who are our rock, our strength, and our place. Amen. Well, our world is awash in hatred, and hatred's close cousin, fear. We see this just everywhere. The proliferation of guns in our country made possible in ways unheard of in previous generations acts of violence and hatred that are headline news almost every week now. In America, for every 100 citizens, there are 90 guns. In Yemen, considered an outpost of mayhem and violence in our world, for every 100 citizens, there are 60 guns. And the political process in our country is run through with malignant hatred between the parties. And for some politicians, there is hatred for segments of the population that they represent. In fact, for some political figures, unless you are male and white and able-bodied, you are suspect and potentially hate-worthy. We are overrun by hatred. What is hatred? One of my mentors is Rabbi Arthur Waskow, leader of the Shalom Center in Philadelphia. He shares this helpful Jewish teaching. There is a type of hatred, in Hebrew it is sinat shanan, that means baseless hatred. This is different from ordinary hatred. Ordinary hatred is grounded in a real experience. This person injured me, so I hate him. But baseless hatred is more abstract. In its grip, we despise people and groups by category. Those who look or sound or believe differently. We do not have to think very long, do we, to name examples of this kind of hatred. Horrible graffiti on the entrance to a mosque. A candidate for president of this country ridiculing handicapped people. Proposed mass deportation based on race, religion. Throughout history, this type of hatred, baseless hatred, has led to the most horrible kinds of violence and persecution and genocide. So it is crucial for us to talk about this and seek to understand. So let us ask together, first, what does science teach us? Second, does our scripture say? And third, what does Dr. King teach us about this? Well, to start with science, we have learned about the human brain that the most primal part of our brain is the fight or flight area, labeled by some the reptilian brain. And it is quite powerful. Early on, it was crucial, very important. It had a place in our survival. There's a saber-toothed tiger. And adrenaline and other chemicals would take over. The rest of our brain would shut down. All of the blood would shunt to that lobe in the back of our brain to help us figure out a way to either fight or flee. The parts with which we think clearly and reason pretty much become non-functional when we are in the limbic fight-or-flight mode. And we automatically, instinctively, reflexively act to either fight or flee. And when we fight or flee, we are in a state of extreme fear, repulsion at what threatens us. We hate whatever it is that threatens us. Dr. King had enemies who hated him by category, who threatened him and meant him violence. Yet he could write and live by this. In your struggle for justice, let your oppressor know that you are not attempting to defeat or humiliate him, or even to pay her back for injustices that he has heaped upon you. Let her know that you are merely seeking justice for him as well as yourself. Let her know that the festering sore of segregation debilitates the white person as well as the black. If I respond to hate with a reciprocal hate, I do nothing but intensify broken community. I can only close the gap in broken community by meeting hate with love. In the final analysis, love means a recognition of the fact that all life is interrelated. All humanity is involved in a single process, and all people are sisters and brothers. To the degree that I harm my brother, my sister, no matter what she or he is doing to me, to that extent I am harming myself. You know, we ask ourselves, how did Dr. King get out of the reptilian cortex thinking and live like that? Well, there is another part of our brain, science teaches us, in the frontal lobe, the higher functioning part of the brain. From this part of the brain, we are able to comprehend, to reason, to think clearly. We can see the whole picture. We are able to feel love and to experience compassion and empathy and oneness with all. There can be joy and peace from this part of our brain. All of these are the attributes and characteristics of our highest self, of who we were meant to be. It is our destiny, our purpose in life, to live from that place of unity and love. This is where the place from which we are meant to do the majority of our living. Of course, in times of danger, when we are physically threatened, we need still the fight or flight part. But friends, we are not meant to be stuck there continuously, which it seems to me a huge number of people in our culture are at, living and reacting from there all the time. Just think of some of the talk show hosts, the radio show hosts on TV, the people that talk past each other and can't hear each other because they are in that fight or flight reptilian brain. How did Dr. King, even with danger omnipresent, physical danger to him, move from that lower functioning to the higher functioning part of your brain? To be technical, he lived almost constantly in real danger. You all know that. His limbic system had every right to be activated all the time. So how did he stop the blood from shunting to the reptilian lobe and instead shunt the blood to the frontal lobe, where he could love his enemies? The answer is that beginning with his parents and continuing throughout his life, he lived, perceived, felt, was grounded in the knowledge that he, Martin Luther King Jr., had been loved. That he was loved, unconditionally, completely, irrevocably. And that this love was the core reality of life. So, when Martin Luther King Jr. hated, when he wanted to kill somebody, When he wanted to lash out or strike back, which of course you know he had all of those feelings, he knew that those reactions and feelings were not ultimate values or principles, but was what he called, and I think we call, sin. That which separates us from God and others is our definition of sin. Violence is sin. War is sin. Revenge is sin. Violent movies are sin. Video games that teach our children to hate and kill those who are not like us is sin. In other words, to allow ourselves to remain in the fight or flight brain functioning lobe of our brain all the time separates us from God and neighbor, and therefore is sin. Dr. King recognized hate, baseless hate. He saw it as an old movie. One that his lower functioning self wanted to play over and over. I don't know if you're like me or like him, but you can get into some relationship or something that you've been hurt and I just play it over and over and over and I can't get rid of it. Dr. King saw that old movie as a really bad movie. He knew how it came out. He'd seen it before. And so, with Christ by his side, he ascended from the realm of the reptilian, of retaliation and hate. And when he did that, he saw his enemies from another place. You have heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. In religious terms, beloved, this is agape. Agape love. A love which is universal. It is for everyone. It is not based on merit. It is not based on earning it or deserving it. It is the same love with which God loves us that we use to love others. You know what? We might call this love baseless love. Like baseless hatred, this love is determined by category. You have to be in a certain category to be loved. And do you know what the category is? Everything. Everyone. Everyone is in. This love is countercultural. And it often infuriates people, calling us, as it does, to change and sacrifice. There are currently strong forces in our country which, clearly operating from the limbic, reptilian, fight or flight brain, urge us to hate based on category. In the latest presidential campaign, Muslims, handicapped people, women were all singled out as worthy of hate. In other places in our society, there are forces that would have us hate black lives and Native American lives. And we can never forget the poor. Our society proclaims them worthy of hate when we cut health insurance, when we cut food stamps, when we turn away from affordable housing for the poor while subsidizing oil companies and giving tax breaks to the wealthy. You see where this goes, of course, where this leads. The message of baseless love, of Christ's love that had such a grip on Dr. King is not often well received in many places. It can be called controversial, meddling, rabble-rousing, revolutionary, socialism. A lot of names. The bearers of this message are often silenced. Jesus, Gandhi, King. Yet agape love, baseless love, remains as it has always been. It is the central foundation and core of reality. I consider, personally, Dr. King to be the greatest figure in our country's history. For he and Jesus, through him, called to us then and calls to us still from beyond the grave. And we hear his call in the highest functioning part of our brain, the words that are our great hope, our only hope. Love everyone. Love everything. Every neighbor. as much as you love yourself. I close with this. During the civil rights years, the early 1960s, there was a sheriff in an Alabama town where much of the drama was played out. This sheriff was known for his cruelty, his harshness, his treatment of those who, through civil disobedience and nonviolent resistance, sought equality and justice. Tear gas, beatings even of children. He hated Dr. King and wanted only that the blacks return to their role of powerless servants and non-persons. He was the face of Jim Crow. His snarling visage on the cover of the New York Times and national magazines. In the middle of the conflict, this sheriff had a heart attack. But even from the hospital bed, he was unrelenting. There was going to be a big rally, a meeting of the protesters at a church, and the sheriff ordered that a couple of his detectives infiltrate the meeting and then come back and report back to him about what their plans were so that he could plan a counterattack. When the detectives returned to the hospital from the meeting, they shared what they had learned. Anything else? The sheriff asked. Well, one of them said, and he wore an odd, confused look. What is it? The sheriff asked. Well, they were praying. Praying! They better be praying. What's going to get ready to come down on their head? And everybody in the room laughed. Except for the detective who was speaking. He wasn't finished. He said, Sheriff, they were praying for you, for your healing, and for your faith.